Imagine a world without color. A world where the sunrise brings no warmth to the eyes, where the faces of your mother and father are nothing more than distant voices, and where the beauty of the earth is a concept you can only dream of. 2,000 years ago, in the bustling city of Jerusalem, this was the daily reality for a young boy. Born into total darkness, he had never seen a flash of lightning, the green of an olive tree, or the grand architecture of the temple. To him, existence was defined entirely by what he could touch, hear, and feel. But in ancient times, physical blindness was more than a medical condition. It was a heavy social stigma. Society looked upon the blind not with pity, but with suspicion. The prevailing belief of the era was rigid. Suffering was the direct result of sin. People assumed that either this boy or his parents had committed a terrible transgression against God, and that his darkness was a divine punishment. Cast aside by his community, the boy had no future, no trade, and no way to survive other than to sit in the dust by the city gates, holding out a fractured clay bowl. Day after day, hundreds of feet shuffled past him. To the world, he was invisible, a beggar in the dirt, a lost cause. He spent his youth listening to a world he could never participate in, waiting for nothing more than a few dropped coins to survive another day. But history is changed by encounters. On an ordinary Sabbath day, a crowd began to gather near the place where the boy sat. The footsteps walking past him suddenly slowed down. A group of men stopped right in front of him. These were the disciples of a radical, widely talked about teacher from Nazareth named Jesus. As the disciples looked down at the blind boy, they didn't see a human being in pain. They saw a theological puzzle to be solved. They turned to their teacher and asked a question that echoed the harsh judgment of the entire city. "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" The boy, sitting in the dust, had heard this question 1,000 times before. He expected the usual condemnation, but the voice that answered was unlike any voice he had ever heard. It was a voice filled with absolute authority, yet dripping with profound, unconditional empathy. Jesus looked at the boy and shuddered centuries of religious stigma with a single sentence. "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," Jesus said, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." Think about the weight of those words. For the first time in his life, the boy was told that his life was not a mistake. He was not cursed. He was not a punishment. Instead, Jesus declared that his very existence was a canvas upon which the glory of the Creator was about to be painted. Jesus added, "As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." What happened next was completely unexpected. Jesus did not simply speak a word of healing from a distance. He stepped closer, descending into the dirt where the boy sat. He knelt in the dust, leveling himself with the forgotten beggar. Jesus spit on the ground and used his fingers to mix the saliva with the dust, forming a soft clay. The crowd watched in absolute silence, confused by his actions. With incredible tenderness, Jesus reached out and gently pressed the cool, wet clay over the boy's closed, sightless eyes. The boy felt the warmth of the teacher's hands. a touch that carried no judgment, only pure love. Then, Jesus gave him a directive. He did not heal him instantly on the spot. He gave him an invitation to act in faith. Jesus spoke clearly. Go, wash in the Pool of Siloam. The word Siloam meant sent. Jesus was sending the boy on a journey of faith. Imagine the scene. The boy stood up, his eyes completely covered in thick mud. He could not see where he was going. He had to rely entirely on his staff, his memory of the city's sounds, and the guidance of kind strangers to navigate the steep, rocky stone steps of Jerusalem down to the southern valley. Every step was a test of faith. The mud on his face was tight and dry under the afternoon sun. People in the streets likely laughed or stared as this blind boy stumbled past, his face smeared with dirt. Doubts must have raced through his mind. Who was that man? Why did he put mud on my face? Will washing it really change anything? Yet, he kept moving, driven by a spark of hope he had never felt before. He navigated the chaotic city until the sound of splashing water told him he had finally arrived. He reached the heavy stone steps of the Pool of Siloam. Kneeling at the edge of the massive stone pool, the boy scooped up the cool, refreshing water into his hands. He brought the water to his face and began to rub away the clay. The mud loosened and washed away into the pool. He took a deep breath, lifted his head, and opened his eyelids. Instantly, the darkness vanished. Light rushed into his brain like a tidal wave. For the very first time in his entire life, the boy saw. The blurry shapes snapped into perfect crystalline focus. He saw the brilliant blue of the Judean sky. He saw the sparkling ripples of the water below him. He looked down at his own hands, turning them over in absolute astonishment. He looked up at the faces of the people standing around the pool. He could see colors, the deep reds, blues, and whites of their clothing. A massive, unstoppable smile broke across his face, and tears of pure, overwhelming joy streamed down his cheeks. He began to laugh. He began to shout, jumping to his feet. The boy who had spent his entire life begging in the shadows was now standing completely immersed in the light. He went home seeing. Word of the miracle spread through Jerusalem like wildfire. Neighbors who had seen him begging for years couldn't believe their eyes. Some said, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Others argued, "No, he just looks like him." But the young man stood tall and declared proudly, "I am the man." Even when faced with intense interrogation by the powerful religious leaders who sought to discredit Jesus, the young man never wavered. They pressured him, questioned his parents, and tried to force him to call Jesus a sinner. But the young man, standing fearlessly before the highest court in the city, delivered one of the most powerful testimonies in history. Whether he is a sinner or not, I do not know. One thing I do know: I was blind, but now I see. This timeless miracle is more than a historical story about physical eyesight. It is a profound message for every single one of us today. It reminds us that no matter how deep the darkness of our circumstances may seem, no matter how much the world may cast us aside or label us a failure, we are never beyond the reach of the Creator. When the light of the world steps into your story, he can turn your dust into a miracle, your struggles into a testimony, and your darkest nights into a beautiful, everlasting dawn. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring journeys through history and faith. Leave a comment below. What areas of your life are you waiting for light to break through?